Bonjour, aujourd'hui c'est un podcast assez spécial, je dois l'avouer, déjà parce que ça va être en anglais. En effet, je t'offre l'introduction qui contient les concepts clés du workshop de la masterclass que je donne le jeudi 20 juin. Alors c'est un concept assez spécial ce workshop parce que j'ai enregistré la partie où je donne toutes les informations et tu vas pouvoir l'écouter, le regarder, prendre des notes et faire les activités que je te propose au meilleur moment pour toi. Donc au lieu d'être coincé pendant 1h30 au milieu de ta journée ou après le travail quand tu es fatigué, je t'offre la possibilité de faire cette masterclass, ce workshop quand tu veux. Et ce jeudi 20 juin 2024, on se retrouve en direct pour discuter de ce que tu as appris. Je serai disponible pour répondre à tes questions. Si tu ne peux pas être là, tu peux aussi soumettre tes questions en avance et on va couvrir l'intégralité du parcours d'apprentissage. Donc, le but de ce workshop, c'est de te donner une vision globale du processus d'apprentissage de zéro, donc du moment où tu commences cette langue jusqu'au moment où tu deviens bilingue. Donc on va même au-delà de fluency, au-delà de parler couramment. J'ai envie de parler des caractéristiques du stade où tu as enfin la confiance de dire je suis bilingue. Donc, pour te montrer un petit peu ce qu'il y a dans ce webinaire, dans ce workshop, j'ai décidé de partager avec toi l'introduction qui contient certains concepts clés que je ne vais pas expliquer pendant le workshop parce que j'ai vraiment envie qu'on se concentre sur les trois phases de l'apprentissage. Beginner, Intermediate et Advanced. Donc, je vais vraiment te parler en détail de ces trois phases, des compétences linguistiques que tu dois acquérir à chaque stade ou qui correspondent à chaque stade de l'apprentissage. Et aussi, je vais t'inviter à réfléchir sur des questions assez puissantes pour te permettre de faire le bilan sur ton apprentissage jusqu'à aujourd'hui et de te projeter dans l'avenir, dans la suite du processus et trouver les actions les plus pertinentes pour toi. En particulier, trouver une action qui sera la plus pertinente pour toi. À l'heure où je publie ce podcast, on est encore avant le 20 juin, donc tu as encore le temps de t'inscrire. Le lien est dans les notes de l'épisode. Et puis si tu as des questions, n'hésite pas à me les envoyer. Je serai ravie de te répondre. Allez, c'est parti, j'envoie la vidéo et si tu écoutes ce podcast en audio, eh bien, tu peux profiter de la bande sonore et sache que sur YouTube, tu peux trouver la vidéo complète avec les slides et aussi avec les sous-titres. And all the things I've learned from scratch, baking and Lindy Hop. Baking, I went from zero, just making cakes at home, to being a macaron master, making over 900 macarons a day at a point. And I've learned on the job. I never took classes, so I'm a self-taught learner. And Lindy Hop, I started 5 years ago after I became a language coach. After I started being interested in my own brain and how things work. And that made me a better Lindy Hop learner because I knew how to analyze my learning process and my learning style. I was able to get help from the teachers and to ask them the questions that I knew would help me progress and learn. When they would try to explain me something, and I'm like, this is not my language. I don't understand when you count on the music. If you help me feel the music, or if you speak, say da 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 instead of numbers, then I'll get it. So this is what thinking about the learning process and your type of learners, your learning profile, this is how it helps you become a better learner and learn faster because you can go straight to the point with the people around you who are here to help you. And I'm a neurolanguage coach. So I got the certification in 2019, and I've continued the training until I became a teacher trainer or coach trainer, so helping people, educators who want to become neurolanguage coaches. I can do the training for that. And I have my own business, My Polyglot Life, where I coach French and English to French speakers. And our thing, neurolanguage coaches, is that we share what we know. We don't hold it as experts. We want to share it with you, which is what I'm doing in that workshop today. So we blend neuroscience, our language expertise, and coaching, the coaching style of conversation when we do a coaching session in the language. It's not top down like a teacher talking to a student, but it's a more horizontal structure, having a discussion around the language, about the language, in the language. So you can really appropriate the concepts or acquire the concepts in a way that makes sense to you. That's what we do, and that's what we do. That's what I do with My Polyglot Life. I also have a podcast in French, My Polyglot Life in French, and starting soon, starting in 2024, a podcast mainly in English, might be in French also, interviews about crossroad moments with different guests. Neurodivergent question mark. I don't know if I'm neurodivergent or not. I'm an introvert for sure, so that already changes my approach to language learning compared to someone who's more extrovert, and society has it as it is right now, who has a tendency to promote extroverts. ADHD, I don't know if I have ADHD, but I experience some of the symptoms. And when I talked to a therapist about that, she told me it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you have it or not. But if you experience the symptoms, finding strategies that work to help you manage those symptoms and become more proficient and function better, then that will help. So whether you're neurodivergent or not, if you experience symptoms that bother you, that you're not happy with, please try to find strategies so that it becomes manageable and it does not stop your progress. Progress might be slower, but we want to keep going up, or at least not go back down. I'm also interested in history, sociology, and politics, and this is very important when we talk about languages, because languages do not exist in a void. They were heavily influenced by history, sociology, and they're an instrument of domination, of power. And this all comes into play also in your language learning journey. You're not French, learning French and learning Spanish is very different. This is because of the cultures and how the language has been created. Spanish was simplified, French was complexified. So you see that already we're not equal when we learn those two languages. So this is why history, sociology, sociolinguistics, and politics matter when we talk about language learning and how we feel as language learner, how people make us feel as language learner or non-native speakers. So that's it about me. Let's continue with the key concepts I wanted to introduce today. First is the growth mindset. Growth mindset, or not yet. I cannot do this yet, which was framed by Carol Dweck. And if you Google it, you'll find more information about it if you want to dig deeper. And this is essential. We should teach that at schools. When, for example, when we say to a kid, oh, you're good at drawing, it seems to imply that they have a gift for drawing. And either you have the gift or you don't. But if we say something that has more to do with their performance, like, oh, this drawing has a lot of details, or you've worked really hard on this drawing, I can see all these efforts that you've made to get there, then it implies that if they put in the work or if they do this or that, then it's possible to reach a certain outcome. And I'm going very fast on that. So please, if you're interested, you can research it to get a more accurate description of it. but it's the idea of not yet. So please keep that in mind. You're not able to do this yet, but everyone can learn. I've worked here in Japan with special needs students, and the amount of progress that they've done over the year that we've worked together, it's incredible. And I've worked with many learners one-on-one doing language coaching. Everyone learns, at least until you're way past your 90s. Like after 90 years old, our brain starts to decline. But before that, new connections get created every day. It may take longer, but it is possible. Metacognition is a key factor of success in learners. And this is the first link I put at the bottom. You will find it in the workshop notes as well. Metacognition is the process that happens when you reflect about the learning process. So metacognition is, for example, planning how you're going to learn something, setting strategies, evaluating those strategies, reviewing your plan. So it's everything that has to do about the learning process, not the content that you're learning, but how you're learning it, and trying to always make it better, more efficient, less painful, faster, whatever is most important to you. Evaluating that process is key, and studies show that metacognition is a skill that should be taught to every learner. We should teach it at school from the very beginning. It is starting in the school right now, but many learners still don't get the importance of it. Next concept is spiral learning. Let me get my notes to not waste too much time phrasing this. Spiral learning emphasizes the continuous progression and building upon previous knowledge. Through spiral learning, learners develop a deeper understanding of the subject matter. So in language learning, you start very small. You start with the alphabet, bonjour, etc. So you start at the center here and you keep adding more and more and more concepts. And then you add another layer. So same concepts, but more depth, more details. And then you go around. And by the end of it, your spiral is wide and thick, many layers. You have a deep knowledge about that concept. But there's no way you're going to learn or to master a concept from the first time you see it. You will need many repetitions and many layers of refining it. So it's okay if you have to see the same thing 10 times. That's how it is. You're just building your spiral. That's the process. So no worries. It's normal if you cannot remember and apply everything that you're learning on the first try. 80% passive, 20% active. I'm not sure about the numbers. Honestly, I don't know if there have been studies about it. I use the Pareto principle that I applied to language learning, but I just wanted to show you that most of the learning happens in a passive way. All the exposure that you get to that language, all the passive learning, reading, listening, just being there around the language, being surrounded by the language, having comprehensible input. So it's language around you that you can mostly understand. This is how your brain acquires the most information and stores it does its magic. It's putting it somewhere in your brain, not necessarily conscious, but it is somewhere. And this is what gives when we talked about the spiral learning, your brain plugs in more and more information to give more depth to that spiral. And 20% active, so it means that you don't need to study 8 hours a day necessarily to make progress and to learn. If you don't have time, if you have time and that's what makes you happy, you can study 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. If you have a life, kids, job, etc., you can do short study sessions, so short active study, very focused, no distractions, keep your full attention on what you're doing, but short. And then everything else use the passive strategies of being immersed, being around and in the language. And next thing to keep in mind is that every learner is unique. Our brains are all wired differently. No two brains are the same. And our needs are different, needs and goals, what we want to do, what we like to do. Everything's different. So that's why we cannot compare with other people. And age is a big factor. I'm not getting younger myself, and my clients are, I have some younger students in their 20s or early 30s, but I also have a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, sometimes 70s. And it is a fact that our processing speed, the processing speed of our brain slows down as we age. And I put this very interesting link at the bottom. You can also find it in the workshop notes, and it's talks about how aging affects focus. Not only old age, but even people start to notice changes as they enter their 50s and 60s. So this is happening. Women who go through menopause also encounter changes, and the brain slows down because there's so much going on and happening. Men also go through andropause, it's called. So they also have some physiological changes going on that affect how the brain works. Good news is that if you get enough sleep, exercise, healthy lifestyle, you can kind of compensate those effects and still perform at a high level, but slower than when you were a student in your 20s, because your only job at that time was to learn new things. So it's a different process. And that's why if you're later in life, you need to adjust how you learn compared to how you were learning before. And I wanted to point something else. Yes, the natural loss of receptors and neurons make it harder to concentrate. So your attention might be more fluctuating. That's why it's important to do short sessions more often, but shorter. And you learn information more slowly, but you may have more trouble recalling it. So it may take longer to assimilate, to acquire a concept. You may need more repetition, more practice. Please keep that in mind. You may need to adjust your expectations and the pace that you can follow, that you can have when learning that new language. And one more thing that I want you to pay attention to and to try to lower, because it's a huge energy sucker: self-doubt and negative thoughts. When I talk about this, I like to compare it with a computer. You know those old computers that the RAM, the working memory, was like 250 megs or something. It was really low, and you had to wait forever for it to, you could not load 2 programs at the same time because their capacity was maxed out. So self-doubt and negative thoughts, they use a lot of brain power. So the more you have that's worried, that's busy and forming negative thoughts or doubting yourself, the less you can use to produce the language, to use all your skills, everything that you've learned. So if you lower self-doubt and negative thoughts, automatically you have more brain power to produce the language. So it's not easy, but there are ways that you can learn to calm yourself down and try to keep those thoughts at bay. When you feel them coming, just say no and continue, keep focusing on what you're trying to express in the language. It will help you. Just doing that will help you a lot. And one thing we want to achieve is to make the language not threatening. You want to associate the language with a good time, a positive experience, to connect it to happy feelings. When the language is connected to a happy time, your brain will want more of it, which means you'll do more passive exposure, and you may also find more time to do your active study. So then it starts a positive circle that will transform your whole learning experience. And that's what I see with my coaching clients. When we start working together, they're very nervous at the beginning. And after a while, they realize we're just having a good time, we're relaxed, we talk about the language, but there are no negative feelings. Like, I'm not going to blame you for not being able to do something. We're just going to take the time you need to explain more, practice more, whatever you need to do to get it, because everyone can get anything. Sometimes you may give up before you get the full picture of it. Like, okay, I understand 80% of it. That's good for today. Let's move on. That's fine also. You don't need to understand 100% of everything every time. But we want that you get that satisfaction. We want to connect the language with happy time. And then it will boost your confidence when you interact with natives. If you can also find positive experiences, spend more time with people who are ready to engage with you and forget about the others. You'll get there later when you're advanced, when you can deal with them. But focus on people who are willing to interact with you and with whom you can have a conversation. And then you'll want more of it. And that's how you start that positive circle. So this is quite a long introduction, but this is Learning 101. Even before we talk about learning concepts, learning how to learn and how to feel good with the language is what's going to drive faster progress and a happier journey. That's why it's so important. Voilà, j'espère que cet épisode t'a plu. C'était un peu inhabituel, mais je trouve qu'il y a des concepts importants, donc j'avais envie de les partager avec plus de monde et j'espère que ça t'a donné envie d'en savoir plus sur les 3 phases de l'apprentissage et de faire ce chemin vers la prochaine étape pour toi. Donc, n'hésite pas à t'inscrire, c'est dans les notes de l'épisode et j'espère vraiment te voir ce jeudi ou en tout cas recevoir tes questions, tes commentaires et puis comme ça on pourra commencer à travailler ensemble sur les problématiques qui te préoccupent en ce moment pour te permettre d'avancer. Allez, et on se retrouve peut-être pour le dernier épisode de la saison d'ici 2 semaines, parce que ensuite je vais préparer mon départ du Japon et mon retour au Canada. Donc les choses vont changer. Je vais redevenir disponible pour du one-on-one, coaching one-on-one. Donc si tu veux un soutien plus personnalisé, n'hésite pas à me contacter. C'est le bon moment avant que mon calendrier ne se remplisse. Ciao, ciao!